Hi everybody, this is Jeremy Siskin here. Today I want to tell you about one of the easiest and I think most overlooked methods of reharmonization. When we think about reharmonization, we think about like making big changes to the chords, but just by placing different notes at the bottom of the chords, we can get some really interesting reharm possibilities. So that's what I want to show you about today. But first, I want to remind you, I talk about this sort of thing in my book, Playing Solo Jazz Piano. There's a whole, I think, really great chapter on reharmonization in there. So if you're interested, that's the best place to check out a little more. And this is probably the last time that I'm going to advertise that I'm still accepting students for my fall beginning jazz piano class at my community college. If you want to learn more, you can visit jeremysiskin.com/jazzclass and read a frequently asked questions. But I think if you're interested in getting deeper into jazz, I think it's the most affordable and in-depth way to do that. Okay, let's talk inversions and reharmonization. So let's take this piece, Misty. Many of you are probably familiar with it, one of the classic jazz ballads. Some of that. Now, let's say that you're able to play this piece, you enjoy playing it, but you want to do something a little bit different, as we usually do in jazz. Or, I have a lot of students who kind of say, like, God, I'm so tired of playing the same piece the same way all the time. For me, improvisation, placing chords in inversions, different I word, is one really great way to start. So let's just kind of do an overview of inversions. So taking this first E flat chord, here I've got the E flat on the bottom. This is one of those great chords where you could use two double thumbs, right? I've got an F and G and C and D, all played with just my thumb. So I could play just pinkies and thumbs and still have a really nice big voice, kind of cool. Now, if we put the third in the bass of the E flat major chord, that would be a G. And you'll hear it's going to make it a little bit sweeter sounding, maybe. Sometimes people ask, how do I think about figuring out a voicing for an inversion? And that's actually a difficult question to ask because it really depends on what notes in the melody, etc., etc. But when you have a chord in first inversion, a major seventh chord in first inversion, I like to think of it as that minor seventh chord. So instead of, if I'm thinking about the voicing for E flat major, when I put the third in the bass, which is G, I'm going to think of it as a G minor chord with a flat 6 in there. So this is your basic shell for a G minor. It's got the 7th, it's got the 3rd, and the melody note happens to be the 5th. And then I'm just going to add that flat 6, which is the original root. Usually when you play an inversion, you want to put the original root of the chord somewhere in that voicing. Otherwise, it just sounds like a totally different chord. And there's room to make it sound like a G minor chord instead of E flat, but it's a little bit different, right? Okay, so that's first inversion with the third in the bass. We could also put it in second inversion with the 5th on bottom. I actually really like that sound for the beginning of this tune. For me, the 5th on bottom sounds like a little bit more of a question, right? It's a little bit unresolved because we have this 4th above the bass, which is the original root, right? E flat above B flat. So that's second inversion, right? First inversion is with the 3rd on bottom. Second inversion is with the 5th on bottom. In jazz, we can kind of keep going above and above that to put the 7th on bottom, the 9th on bottom. Here, the 7th on bottom isn't going to sound great because the 7th is in the melody, so we're going to get kind of this weird chord. I'll show you later. I think there are times when it's nice to put the 7th on bottom. I'm not sure that this first chord is one of them. It's very dark version of Misty, which I'm into different interpretations of songs, but it's hard to imagine that Misty could be interpreted in that dark of a way. But what about the 9th on bottom? So the ninth would be F. I don't think we ever use this term. This would be fourth inversion, but nobody ever says that. I would just say it's an E flat chord with the ninth on bottom, or an E flat major chord with the F on bottom. And this is going to actually sound like a sus chord. Right? This is almost exactly what I would play for an F sus 7. So we've got some options there. And as we keep going, one thing that we could try that's usually going to be a really nice sound is to create a stepwise bass line as we move from chord to chord. So for example, let's say, I liked having that fifth on bottom. So I'm going to put the E flat major seventh with a B flat on bottom. Then we could keep the B flat on bottom here, put a B flat on bottom of the E flat 7, so that's like second inversion, B flat to the fifth, and that's going to lead by a step to the A flat major. Let's see how that sounds. So we still have all the original kind of feeling of the piece, but it's just a little bit different. And to me, these inversions also invite maybe an interpretation on the upper half of the piano. Isn't that nice, right? So I've got the B flat on bottom. Just see how much less movement that is than if I were to go. That's nice too. But I feel like I can kind of stretch that phrase out for longer if I keep that B flat on bottom. Watch one more time. Right. Let's try a different stepwise bass line. I'm just going to clear this. Let's say I'm going to start on the G. Let's see, that could go to, it could go either up to an A flat or down to an F. Let's go up to the A flat, just for kicks on the B flat minor. And let's keep going up. Let's go to B flat and then over C. So now we've got an ascending stepwise bass line. Kind of rare, right? Harmony usually moves downwards, but now we're going to move upwards. So we've got... Ooh, that was kind of interesting. It's weird to me because this chord, the B flat minor 7 over A flat, kind of wants to resolve down to me. So let's try going down to G, and then what we're gonna do, we're gonna keep that G. So we're gonna have a third inversion chord. Let's see how that sounds. That third inversion chord, it's a little bittersweet, it's a little bit dark, but as long as it then resolves, we could keep this stepwise bass line going, go down to G flat to F, and then it could go back and land on the E flat here. So I'm just creeping down the chord. So I'm putting the E flat in the bass, and then I'm keeping that E flat in the bass for the C minor. I can keep that E flat for the F minor, and then go down to the D. Actually, let's keep the E flat for the B flat 7. So it sounds very different. It sounds much more sophisticated. I'm not changing the chords. I'm just changing the bass notes. Now, let's look at some other possibilities that we can do with inversions. So, if we zero in on this first E flat major measure, one thing we can do, especially because there's this big space in here, right? Right? And one thing that we can do to create a little bit of movement is do 2 or 3 or potentially more different inversions of the chord during that measure. So, it could be we do E flat over B flat for 2 beats, and then we go to E flat over G for 2 beats. just hypothetically. Right? Created some motion. Or, like, check this out. You know, we could make some stepwise movements using inversions here. So B flat, you know, we'll do the original for one beat, and then over D flat for one beat. And this E flat chord, we'll do the original for one beat, and then the inversion for one beat. G will lead to A flat, D flat will lead to E flat. Okay, again, I'm not changing the harmony. And then, you know, we could do the same thing here. We could place the A flat major over C for 2 beats. So, you know, there I'm just going 1, 3, 1, 3. Root position, first inversion with the third on bottom. Root position, first position. Root position, first inversion with the third on bottom. So it's a great way to create a little bit of motion. Now, I did something a little bit naughty when we got to this B flat 7 earlier, which is that I had an E flat in the bass, and I said, let me just keep that E flat in the bass. Technically, we wouldn't call that an inversion. We would call that a slash chord. And the difference between inversions and slash chords is that in an inversion, you're using a note from the chord in the bass. In a slash chord, you're using a note outside of the original chord in the bass. So that E flat is not a part of the original chord, but it's gonna sound nice. Another option for slash chords, especially for dominant chords, is to use an altered tone. E is the sharp 11 or the flat 5, however you want to call it, of the B flat 7. And this creates the feeling of the tritone substitution. If you're not familiar with the tritone substitution, it's this concept in jazz that you can trade out 2 dominant chords that are tritone away from each other, that they're essentially interchangeable. So this ends up feeling like an E7. You know, but it's even possible to do a sharp 5. Put F sharp on bottom. Right? Or a flat 9. What about that? What if we put B natural? Or C flat? Let's call it C flat. It's more correct. It ends up kind of feeling like a diminished chord. But you can use some altered tones to spice up your dominant chords, put them in the bass, and they create these different sounds. You know, lastly, we could try the sharp 9, which is going to be kind of a funny sound, but again, if we connect well, it should work. So I would try to, you know, write yourself into a corner with some interesting inversions or slash chords. And then I think my last point is that pedal points are incredibly useful everywhere. And I encourage you to find places to use pedals. A pedal point, if you're not aware, that's where we stick with a single bass note for an extended period of time. The most common pedal point in probably all music, but I'll go ahead and say jazz because I don't claim to know everything about all music, is pedaling on the 5th scale degree. So here the piece is in E flat major. So we would put all these chords over a B flat in the bass. create contrast within a performance. You know, I think that's one of the struggles of solo piano playing is like, okay, I'm trying to do a 5-chorus performance. How do I make each chorus a little bit different? Pedal points can be really, really helpful. I'm always a fan of trying weird pedal points, things other than the 5, you know, and seeing how long you can stick with them. So, you know, here, the root might be nice. Actually very pretty. I really like it. Or let's try to use the 3rd of the key. It's probably going to be weird. There's that 3rd inversion chord. It's not my favorite sound. I'm a little skeptical. Alright, I've got one. Let's see. Let's try an F. Probably not. But worth a try. I love experimenting with those different pedal notes. Alright, so let me summarize what we've learned here. I will write up in this corner. Oh, my iPad's lagging. So first thing is try out some inversions, right? Second, try to make a stepwise bass line. And the reason is that as you make stepwise bass lines, it creates these natural points of tension and resolution. Third thing is you could try to use multiple inversions for one chord. Fourth, try to use some alter tones or slash chords as your root notes, as your bass notes. And then lastly, try to use pedal points. Stay on one root note for a long time. I would start with the 5th. And then try some different things from there. Again, I'd encourage you, go to my website, jeremysiskin.com. If you go to the shop, you can grab a copy of this book. I will sign it if you order it from the website. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be posting some really nice brand new videos of me playing some standard tunes that you might know. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you soon.